Think about the last time you drove home from work. You pulled into the driveway, turned off the engine, and suddenly realized you don't actually remember the last 5 miles of the drive. You weren't distracted. Exactly, you were on autopilot. Your brain just took over. This is the power of a habit. We like to think of ourselves as conscious, rational beings making thousands of choices a day, but the reality is much more humbling. Research out of Duke University suggests that about 40% of our daily actions aren't conscious decisions at all, they're habits. Today, we're going to look under the hood. We're going to talk about the habit loop, the neurological battle happening inside your skull, and why your brain is actually designed to make it hard for you to change. The anatomy of the loop. To understand why habits are so hard to break, you have to understand the habit loop. It's a three-part cycle: the cue, the routine, and the reward. Imagine you're sitting at your desk at 3 o'clock p.m. You feel a slight dip in energy. That's the cue. You walk to the kitchen and grab a chocolate chip cookie. That's the routine. Then you feel that hit of sugar and a brief social interaction with a coworker. That's the reward. Your brain is an energy-saving machine. If it can turn a sequence of actions into an automatic routine, it frees up mental bandwidth for more complicated tasks. The problem? Your brain doesn't have a moral compass. It stores the habit of smoking a cigarette just as efficiently as it stores the habit of going for a morning run. To your basal ganglia, the primitive part of the brain where habits live, a habit is just a shortcut. The battle for your brain, there is a constant tug-of-war happening inside your head. On one side, you have the prefrontal cortex. This is the evolved human part of your brain. It's responsible for logic, long-term planning, and willpower. This is the part of you that says, I should eat a salad because I want to be healthy. On the other side, you have the basal ganglia. This is the ancient lizard brain. It loves patterns, efficiency, and immediate gratification. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your prefrontal cortex gets exhausted. It shuts down, and when it does, the basal ganglia takes the wheel. This is why you find yourself eating a bag of chips at 11 o'clock p.m. even though you decided to start a diet that morning. You didn't run out of character. You ran out of cognitive fuel. The dopamine trap. We can't talk about habits without talking about dopamine. For a long time, we thought dopamine was about pleasure. We thought you got a hit when you ate the cookie, but science has shown us something much more sinister. Dopamine is actually about craving. Once a habit is formed, your brain starts releasing dopamine before you even perform the action. It's the anticipation. When you see a notification on your phone, your brain spikes with dopamine. If you don't check the phone, that dopamine drop feels like physical discomfort. You aren't checking the phone because it's fun. You're checking it to stop the craving. This is how neurological cravings are born. The cue triggers an itch that only the routine can scratch. The Keystone secret. So, how do we actually change? If you try to overhaul your entire life at once, you're going to fail. The prefrontal cortex can't handle that much load. Instead, the most successful people focus on keystone habits. A keystone habit is a single change that ripples into other areas of your life. Take exercise, for example. When people start exercising regularly, even just 20 minutes a day, something strange happens. They start eating better. They start sleeping more, they become more productive at work, they even start using their credit cards less. Why? Because exercise is a keystone habit that strengthens your willpower muscles. It proves to your brain that you are the type of person who has discipline. Once that identity shifts, the other habits follow like dominoes. The art of habit stacking. The biggest mistake people make is trying to build a habit out of thin air. You say, I'm going to start meditating, but where does that fit? The secret is habit stacking. You take a habit you already have, something as simple as pouring your morning coffee, and you stack the new habit on top of it. After I pour my coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I brush my teeth, I will do 5 push-ups. By tethering the new behavior to an established cue, you're hijacking the brain's existing neural pathways. You're not building a new road. You're just adding a lane to a highway that's already running smoothly. The 1% rule and the plateau of latent potential. Finally, we have to talk about expectations. We live in a world of instant results, but habits are like compound interest. If you improve by 1% every day, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year. But here's the catch. For the first few weeks, it feels like nothing is happening. You're eating healthy, but the scale isn't moving. You're practicing guitar, but you still sound terrible. This is what we call the plateau of latent potential. Most people quit here. They think this isn't working, but the work isn't being wasted. It's being stored. It's like heating an ice cube from 25 degrees to 31 degrees. Nothing happens. But when you hit 32 degrees, the ice melts. That 1 degree shift didn't do all the work. All the previous degrees were necessary to get there. Conclusion. The science of habits teaches us that we aren't defined by our biggest goals, but by our smallest systems. You don't attain a healthy life. You practice one. Stop focusing on the finish line and start looking at the tracks you've laid down. If you can change the cue or tweak the reward, or just stack one tiny 1% improvement onto your morning routine, you aren't just changing what you do, you're changing who you are, because in the end, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, isn't an act, it's a habit.